Okay, great. Let's get started with this next video and take a listen.
Hello, I am student number 1, and I will perform for you Sérénade, Opus 53, number 5, by Ernst Haberbier.
I'm going to pause it there just for a second, just to talk about the opening, because there's a few things that are going to set the scene for the rest of this piece, I think. The first thing is this accompaniment figure, and there's a lot of moving 16th notes, so it's easy for those to sort of overpower the melody in the right hand. So it's essential to make sure that this opening and the accompaniment in general is very soft. We really want two levels. And in the music, he marks mezzo piano and mezzo forte, a real difference in the dynamic. So instead of starting this at sort of a full volume, I would even try and aim for pianissimo. And it's probably going to come out about mezzo piano because the register that it's in and how many notes there are, but that lets that melody really shine. It creates this really soft piano atmosphere when really the melody kind of has to be a forte melody to stand out. And that brings me to the next point. These melodies, he marks them really specifically, and he marks a pedal, but everything's under a slur with this last note here marked as staccato, and then this note marcato with a crescendo to it. And so it kind of raises the question, why would you mark something staccato or marcato under the pedal, something that might be short when it's going to be sustained no matter what? And that kind of has to do with, I think, the intent of the way you're touching the keys, the articulation, the attack. So this staccato note is not going to be, because it's on the pedal, but physically it's going to give you that separation to lift and really hit this last note so that it rings. So this, we want to hit that note, and that comes back in a few different spots. So that also adds a little bit to the way that you're presenting yourself physically. You have a great presence, and I think in general, I'm very much advocate for staying close to the keys. But there are some spots where not only are you doing it for the sound, but visually, when the audience kind of those who are viewing see sort of physically, it really does kind of pull them in a little bit more to your performance, just beyond what they're hearing, but also what they're seeing. And one other thing, it's easy to, the sheet music for this is, like I said, very detailed. But in this part that comes right after, we have a double stem on this G. And I think that's a really interesting thing that you want to bring out of the music, so that it's not just a bunch of broken chords, but it sort of leads us into the next section. So that G resolving. adds a lot to it. And I think that's something that is probably going to come back. All right, let's continue. Pause again just for a second. I think there's some really interesting, the harmonies in this piece are really beautiful. And we really have to pay attention to the bass line and the interaction that it has with the melody. And this little section that, this has an accent, right? So we're slowly climbing up, but so is the bass when we're going from so make sure that you bring out this chromatic bass line that's, you know, obviously within the dynamic it's going to be growing, but every time that it goes up a half step, you want to make sure that that's brought out in the bass. That's going to give it a little bit more, you know, a little bit more something for the audience or whoever's listening to follow the structure of this piece and these harmonies, which are really beautiful. Okay, let's keep going. Beautiful, wonderful. So I think kind of a little bit what I said before about this play between the left and right hand, like in these sections where there's these accents. Anytime that there's that tension that's rising, you can figure out which notes are the most important, you know, because it's the root of the chord or what, you know, what function the harmony has, and those you can bring out. And circling back a little bit to what I said at the beginning, I want to talk just a little bit more about that. And I think that's really all that could make this performance sound better. With this really soft accompaniment, sometimes it's like, how do we do that? It's hard to play soft because sometimes when we're really calculating, it's like how delicately we press the key. Sometimes nothing comes out, or it's tricky. And so a way to think about playing softly is not pressing the key, but thinking in terms of the weight of your hand or your arm. And you'll really get to know the weight and how to control that. So it's not so much pressing a key, but setting your hand down. And it's kind of like if I take, like, let's say my cell phone, for example, and I'm going to place it down, it's going to be pretty consistent, if I place it down, the weight of this phone. Like, I'm not pressing down, I'm just releasing it and letting gravity do the work. And it's a kind of a really nice, consistent sound. So if you're thinking in terms of that weight transfer for these left-hand accompaniments that are very busy, and the lower strings are bigger and have more resonance, so it's hard to do this kind of voicing. So instead of thinking of how you're going to be pressing the keys, just think of how you're setting your fingers down. It's going to get a lot easier to get that really soft dynamic that's then going to allow you to play a more forte version of these melodies. And when you put it all together, it's going to sound soft and romantic. It's going to sound, a lot more pleasing, and it's going to guide the listener to what the important parts are and what parts are sort of creating the atmosphere. Other than that, I think it's a really beautifully performed, and just a couple little things can, transform it and make it even better. So thank you so much for sharing that.